Howdy folks, welcome back to the forge. There's something that I think these days in knife making is misunderstood, and I'd like to talk about it just for a minute. Now, I've got plenty of opportunity to show you hot work, and I'm going to do that. I've got a lot of things in store to share with you, some of my ways, some of my techniques, and I'll get to all of that eventually. So be patient with me. But I want to talk about a subject that it's what I refer to as sufficiency. And what do I mean by sufficiency? Let me try to explain using one of these small x-rays. As with any knife, you want it to be strong enough, right? Strong enough. That's another way of saying sufficient. So we want it to be sufficiently strong. If we make it too strong, though, we stand the risk of making a knife heavy, needlessly. So it's more than sufficient in the category of weight and thickness and mass. So if we have that mindset and we think, well, this much is sufficient, but I'm going to go extra and make it really strong, then we've just added weight to it for no real good reason. That is, if it's sufficient for the purpose and you go more than that, then you're going too far and you're making it heavy. Every knife has a purpose. The hunting knife is for hunting and for skinning and things like that, small chores. It won't likely ever see chopping. And very few hunting knives is ever going to see battening through with a club. Now, in those cases, if a knife is going to chop, as in the case of this x-ray cleaver, it needs to be sufficient for its purpose. So there's certain areas on the knife that I have added thickness and weight where I thought it was necessary for the purpose. So if I make it too heavy, it becomes cumbersome and you're not going to carry it. So even a big knife that's a chopper, you want it to kind of balance. So just in front of the plunge is where that is. And if this becomes too thick, too heavy, then the whole knife gets heavy, and actually the back end of it becomes heavy and it's out of balance. You can tell it when you're using it. But back to the hunting knife. The main part that needs to tie the blade to the handle is right here, and that's the top part. So it needs to be as strong as it possibly can, right there at that juncture. So you notice a lot of times that I will put a step on either side that match, and it's on an angle. Let's just say, for instance, that was square. Well, the torquing or the prying that one might do with a knife, if that was square, that would be on perpendicular to that plane, and it would be weaker that way. But if you put it on an angle, it makes the tie between handle and blade longer and stronger with no more added material. It's just the way it's changed on an angle, and so you're using a little bit of just engineering to tie the handle to the blade. And then it tapers two ways, this way as well as this way, and it comes on around, and this part down here where it's riveted is just merely supporting this back end and giving your fingers a complete grasp. So if this knife was built too heavy, it would be out of balance. So generally speaking, we want a knife to be balanced where you hold it just behind the guard. A small knife, that is. So that one is sufficiently strong and it's balanced. That's one thing I want to emphasize about my purpose for the X-ray was to not make it so different from a conventional knife that it wouldn't function. It's not an art piece entirely, or at all. If you, some might say it's not an art piece. No. Well, I try to instill into the knife certain features that mimic scroll work or some kind of a flow that's a natural flow. Some may not see the value in that or view it as an art piece, but that's okay. But I maintain that if it has a certain amount of flow, and if you are using natural laws and natural proportions that you find in nature, it will be stronger. Let's look at this one. Now this is a 5.5 inch X-ray buoy. Now this is just a small buoy. The purpose is different than a chopper. However, I mean, it might see skinning, it might see thrusting, but it's not going to see the heavy duties as a big cutter like this would. That's heavy, and it's front heavy even. In fact, this one is balanced about the same point as the Hunter, a much smaller knife. But yet it's sufficiently strong in the places it needs to be. It's a little different design than the Hunter, but this top band that comes and ties to the blade, there's enough contact, or it's really a blending of the blade back into goes from vertical at the blade to horizontal at the handle. So that T shape is long enough and sufficient to where the blade and the handle is one unit. They remain one unit. And again, as with the others, this is the heaviest part and the thickest part, although it's not very thick. And the bottom merely supports that and fills the hand. So these are things that I wanted to point out. And in the June 2021 Blade magazine, it's the one with Neil Kamamura on the front cover, and there's a little picture of me down in the corner. But it's referring to page 42, I think it is, an article. It's called X-Ray, Why? Or the X-Ray Knife. And then the question is, why? And that's where I try to explain my thoughts on the knife and what I had been thinking about whenever I come up with a design. So I'm really finding that the overall concept is very adaptable to any kind of knife. I've not found any knife that I can't adapt it to. There may be conditions, say conditions of say region of the world, say in the Arctic or Antarctic. There may be good reason not to use an X-ray in places like that. But in very, very severe situations where frostbite may not be involved, but you need strength and reliability, then the concept and design is very, there's advantages to it. It's very strong, and again, I'll say it's sufficiently strong. Anything that you can dish out to it that the human body can put on and inflict on a knife, the design will hold up to it. So those are some of the things I wanted to bring out. And I'm not sure if we will be on YouTube with this, but probably so. And I want to just give you a heads up that there will be more videos coming, and there'll be a lot of hot work. And I look forward to sharing some of those things with you. I've got a little bit of new equipment, kind of working out the bugs on it. So if you would like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.